One of the things that's important to remember about the 5 million promise is that a lot of work went into getting to that point, right? So we did a lot of front end work. We built this team. We did a lot of work at GA last year and have spent a lot of time building both capacity and community with other Black UUs. So for us, it was a recognition of work we had already done and an understanding that our vision is wide and far and that we have so much more to do together. So
I also think it's just really important for people to understand that, you know, nobody wrote a check for $5.3 million and handed it to us. Like, that hasn't happened. We don't have that money right now. It's a promise. It's tied to fundraising. There's a lot of work that comes before those resources change hands, but it's been framed like somebody just gave 6 people a check to go run wild with, and that's not at all what has happened. I also think that there is a pervasive attitude amongst some in our faith that the people on this team are getting rich, or that we took the mythical check and divided it 6 ways and we're living high on the hog, and that is not the truth at all. Any resources that BLUU has gotten access to, we've immediately turned them back out into the community. Whether that was supporting people to attend the convening that we planned in March, some 80+% of those people who came were fully funded to be there. Or if the resources that we put together both last year and this year to get people to General Assembly. So, you know, but where's the money that they have gotten so far? It's paid for people to do things in this faith. You know, any resources we've gotten have gone back out immediately to other Black Unitarian Universalists. So I think it's important to understand that we're not profiteering or something.
And not just Black UUs, right? Like, we also set a challenge to people in our faith for like the Mama's Bailout Fund. In totality, we've raised now over $30,000 to that fund, and I feel like that is, to me, that's at the center of our faith, right? And at the center of what we do as Black UUs is making sure we're not being insular, we're not sort of reproducing some of the same things that caused us to start BLUU, which was that, you know, we're going to be centered on and move from a space of supporting Black UUs and also continuously building connections with our broader Black community, broader movement spaces that are working for justice, and making sure that we continue to do that. And so I just want to lift that up too, because I feel like it's really important.
That's true. You know, one of the things that I feel like people continue to miss is this notion that funding isn't always about money.
Yes.
Funding isn't always about money. This isn't about money per se. What this is really about is seeing the looks on people's faces when different things are happening that they get to be a part of. What this is about is people on our closed group sharing how joyful they are that they get to come to GA in a way that they've never been able to come before. What this is about is what the healing space is going to look like in a couple of hours, right? Where folks are going to be able to show up and fully be themselves in that space in a way that they often can't even be in their own congregations. This isn't about money. This is about self-determination. This is about love. This is about faith. This is about honoring our very best selves. That's what this is about. And that's exactly who we are. And that's exactly what we do. And as somebody who is probably the newest on this team, that's me. I'm brand new. And so let me tell you about my experience as a brand new person. I have come alive being a part of this group of folks. These people are brilliant, they are strategic, they are clear in who they are here for. We are here for our Black folks. And the beauty of that is that everybody knows it.
Yes.
Everybody knows it, because all the things that we're called to do, all the things that we're doing at 2, 3 in the morning, my God, when I'm tired and I can't imagine doing anything else, I'm gonna do this thing. Because I know that there are 10 or 20 or 100 people next week who are going to feel the impact of it.
That's right.
And so that's why I'm here. That's why we're all here. This isn't about money. This is about our hearts. This is about ministry. This is about love and care and compassion for all of our blackness, all that makes us who we are. And so, you know, I don't have much time for folks who are thinking about this as if it's only about money. Because if you think that it's only about money, then you couldn't possibly understand what it's really about.
Yeah, I think it's also very interesting how there's a lot, or maybe there's been some talk about how BLUU has come out of maybe nowhere, and I think that that same can be said about Black folks in the faith, right? So we know we've been here since the inception of the faith, and we know we have a strong connection with our elders, and we know that they have a strong connection with us, and what we move forward and the actions that we decide to take is definitely a right relationship with the folks that we are trying to serve, the Black folks in the faith, both elders and the ones that are just showing up tomorrow. So just another one of the things I just want to make sure was clear to people that get the chance to see the video is that we are definitely walking the walk in right relationship and taking into account everyone that we can that's dedicated to moving this process of Black folks being Black in UU faith.
When I think about the money, when I think about the financial promise, I think about what Black Lives UU is, to me, rooted in, which is, you mentioned love, Michael. I think also action and ancestry, and that this is a group of people who do. I have never been a part of a group that does so much. I mean, the Facebook thread, you know, you don't look at it for 2 hours, and because we are always moving. And I think it's because in the way that our faith elders, our broader Black ancestors have always done, we are responding to need. And that's what I think this financial promise does, is it allows us to continue to ever more effectively respond to need and to help Black UUs and the broader Black movement to a greater sense of justice and a greater sense of faith.
That's right.
Right. And why in the world would anybody with good sense have a problem with that? Like, really, you know, some of the things that I've seen and heard about BLUU, which suggests that we're a bunch of, I don't know, ragtag rogue Negroes, a faction, if you will, that fell out the sky. It's like, I've been in this faith since I was 14 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You know, Kenny is born and raised in this. We got plenty of years here. That's not what should matter. What should matter is that we saw some people who had a need, and we stepped up to meet it. Why are you upset about that? We saw some hungry people and tried to feed them. And you got an attitude about it. Like, so if there's something about the work that we're doing that you feel really bothered by, or the notion of BLUU rubs you really wrong, that's something you need to reconsider. We are doing two really important things. One is supporting the unmet pastoral and spiritual needs of Black Unitarian Universalists. That's right. The second thing that we're doing is, we talk about it as justice making and liberation through our faith. Connecting as people of faith authentically to a larger movement around Black liberation. Those are two things that we are doing. If you have a problem with either of those, that's going to be your problem, because it's not going to be ours.
And you also shouldn't be calling yourself a UU if you have a problem.
If you have an issue with that, you might need to rethink your relationship to our faith and your commitment to our principles. But the other thing about that to me is, part of the reason why we can respond and know those needs so intimately is because we've experienced it.
That's right.
We've been in this space with unmet pastoral and spiritual needs as Black UUs. And, you know, everybody here knows that Takia can only say it how she feels it. The reality is this: if this work could have been done already, it would have been. If folks with more access to resources and power, certainly than the six of us have, could meet those needs, it would have been done already. BLUU evolves and exists because there's a space for us. There's been an opening. There's been neglect.
That's right.
And we're filling that need. We're standing in that space. And if you have a real problem with us trying to meet the needs of Black Unitarian Universalists, you need to figure out why that is.
Yeah, and just to briefly build, as a lifelong UU, it really hurts me when I hear people talk about Black Lives UU as though it's something separate from, a faction or something separate from Unitarian Universalism. I mean, these are some of the best Unitarian Universalists I know, and some of the truest ones. And I think about, a lot of folks play the game in the airport when they're going to GA of like spot the UU. And, in some ways it's a funny game, and the fanny packs and the Birkenstocks and all that stuff. But at the same time, to me, like, what if we couldn't play that game so effectively?
Yes.
Right? Like, what if you really couldn't tell? Because we're the six of us. We are Unitarian Universalists.
Right.
You may not
This
spot
is what
us.
a Unitarian
Right.
Universalist looks like.
So, yeah, that game's fun, but I think it's not always about numbers. It's about resources. It's about access. But I want to help build a faith where folks who look like us, folks who look different from your typical Unitarian Universalist, truly feel welcomed and affirmed as Unitarian Universalists. That's why I'm here.
And that needs work, right? And that needs work not just on our side, but it's work on the other Unitarian Universalists that are out there and what they need to work on. And so a lot of people, I think, when they're going through the process of figuring out what they're going to do, how they're going to support, right? Are they supporting with their paychecks? Are they supporting with their bringing people together? How are they going to support this actual actions that we move and put together? And you hear the processing that they go through, right? And you hear this like, oh, first we were going to say we're going to give this money, and then we're going to put these restrictions on it. And then we said, well, no, what if they gave us some ideas about what we should do about that? And then they finally get to the point where like, no, we're giving this freely, because they've actually started to do the work of understanding the white supremacy that they had inside of themselves. And that's part of what we are doing here, right? In supporting ourselves, we are supporting the faith. And that is exactly why we are here.
And I don't want to lose the importance of this moment for us. There is no other denomination in the country that has said we are going to invest in Black leadership, in self-determination for Black leaders and Black people. And, the Lutherans aren't doing that. The Presbyterians aren't doing it. The Methodists aren't doing it. The Catholics aren't doing it. The UUs are doing it. Even the Jewish folks with the Jews of color, they're not doing it. I think that has kind of been lost in all that our denomination has been through in these past months. And we've been through some stuff, right? Is that the historical gravity of what this could be if we can get our heads up a little bit out of what has been happening within our faith. That this is hugely historic. We have, and in some parts, it is a beginning of reparations. I don't think it is by any means the totality of it, but I think we are grappling with what it means to say, we're not out here begging for this money. As Black folks in America, our ancestors have paid for this in their blood, period. As Unitarian Universalists, this money was promised in 1968 and that promise was broken. And that caused a lot of pain and woundedness. So when we think about reparations, when we think about healing, when we think about things that we are supposed to be about as people of faith, this is actually the heart of it, or the beginning of the heart of it. And so to allow other things to, like fear, to inject themselves into our faith and into how we relate to one another, and to allow this to take over is not living into our faith values, and it's not being the best Unitarian Universalist that we can be. And so I think part of what I've been sitting with my heart coming to General Assembly is that here we have this historic thing that was brought to us. All of us have been placed, I believe, to come together to do this. I I know there are folks in the movement for Black Lives who have never heard of Unitarian Universalism and now are like, oh, maybe this could be a faith that feeds me in my work. And these are people who are literally changing the world we live in. So I feel like I don't want to lose that in all of the messiness. And I feel afraid that we're going to allow that to happen in some ways, and we're going to be focused on the wrong things. So I keep challenging myself to come back to what are the faith values that I can ground myself in that can really pull us out of that fear and say, BLUU we're taking risks. We're making decisions that we believe will move the ball forward for our faith and for our people in this country. And some of those projects might fail. Some of those might not work. When we put the convening together, we didn't know if anybody was going to come. And then over 100 people, Black UUs from all different walks of life came. And people came back and said, that changed my life.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was a risk, though, and we have to be willing to take those risks as a faith and then not just throw people under the bus and say it didn't work. And how can we do that as a faith together? And I also want to just publicly thank Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, Reverend Jan Eller Isaacs, and we're also doing a larger thank you in plenary because there's been a whole host of witnesses, including CLF and Reverend Meg Riley. But really, it was, Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs and Denny Davidoff publicly coming to us and saying, we had this idea, because they remember 1968. They remember the brokenness. They remember the woundedness, and they were at that time, powerless to stop it. And now, that they have more power to do something about it, they were like, we as white youths are going to do what we can to make this right. And so I want more of that. I want more white youths to be searching their heart. And yet, it's this line of taking responsibility for a past that maybe you didn't have a individual stake in, but understanding that because of your whiteness, you still benefit from it. And how do you take responsibility for that? Not just within a UU context, but within a larger framework as well. And so holding the gravity of all of that as we go into this time together, I think is going to be really important.
I like that you mentioned risk. I remember when we first formed BLUU under the cloak of darkness. And we wrote the 7 principles together collectively. It was the first thing we ever decided to do as a group. And I was like, cool, I picked a date, we're gonna launch then. And everybody was like, what? I was like, whoa, that's real. What a minute. And I was like, no, let's just do it. And it was funny because I remember I was like, let's not put anybody's names. We didn't want it to be about who, was putting this together, but about the work. And so that whole week we released a different principle for 7 days in a row. And I remember the first things I heard were people like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Who are they? What are they? Who are they? Who are they? And so, I remember that risk, and I remember it feeling very naked. Like we were kind of like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna sit with people. And so I go back to that often when I make ridiculous suggestions to the group to do something. And I'm like, no, that one paid off. I think we can keep pushing because risk is real. And relevant. So for us, I think that's been at the core of the work that we do. Strong faith work is always risky. That's right. Yep. Yes. Jesus took risks. Muhammad took risks. That's right. That is all. Every faith tradition is built upon people that took risks in the name of their faith, and that is what we do, and that's what we continue to do.
And, I was reminded this week talking to one of the folks who has become sort of a part of our extended BLUU family that historically Unitarians and Universalists, we're talking about, we come from the roots of the heretic. We come from people who were risky in their faith and in the proclamation of their faith, and who were not afraid to be a minority voice in the service of what they believe to be right and good and true. So I think part of what has pained me, and it has been people who look at the work that we do in BLUU as if it's somehow doing Unitarian Universalism wrong, right? As if there's a right way to be a UU and a wrong way. And the right way is the way that the white folks do it. And if we aren't doing what they're doing or or aspiring to that or choosing to operationalize our faith in a different way, then somehow we're not really UUs.
Yeah.
We're not really a part of this faith. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait, I was on the adult IRE committee and I was an IRE assistant and I went to multicultural leadership school and I helped the kids that summer at the church and I was tithing even in grad school when I didn't have no money and I've been went to I mean, that's not like how dare you treat us like that? How dare you treat us that way as if we're not central and essential to this faith? What Unitarian Universalism is today is in large part what people of color have made it through our money and our innovation, our creativity, and our sacrifice. You won't hear that in a UU 101 class. You won't hear that in an introduction to Unitarian Universalism. And so what ends up happening is that Unitarian Universalism gets framed as the good liberal white folks religion, and that us people of color should just be glad that the nice white people let us up in here, and that we should do our best to learn to express and live into our faith in the way that the dominant culture does. It also makes it so that Unitarian Universalists of color in general, and Black UUs in particular, don't get a sense of our legacy, our historical legacy in building this faith. This belongs to us just as much as it belongs to anybody else. We are full members, not second-class citizens of this beloved community. And what has been so remarkable to me is to meet other Black folks through the work of BLUU, who identify very strongly as Unitarian Universalists, or what we like to call UU adjacent. They're looking at us, they're touring us, but because of the overwhelming culture of oppression in our brick and mortar churches, they are unchurched. People will say, oh, well, Unitarian Universalism has a class problem. We don't have enough class diversity. Yes, you do. The class diversity largely exists amongst your Black and people of color Unitarian Universalists. But since you're not talking to us really and meeting our needs, you don't really know the full scope and swath of the tapestry and heritage and fabric of our faith. I believe that Unitarian Universalism is the faith of the future. I believe we have an opportunity to really live into and be the beloved community to which we aspire. But what my faith teaches me is that the lover always wants to improve the condition of the beloved, both spiritually, materially, and otherwise. We love our faith, we love each other, we love our people. And out of that love, that wellspring of love, compassion, and care, the action and the work that we're doing and will continue to do comes from that. That's right. That's what it's about. For us, this is living fully into our faith. Yes. You know, and if it offends somebody that we're living out Unitarian Universalism in this way, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a UU. I tried to be some other things, but it didn't work. I'm a Unitarian Universalist. We are Unitarian Universalists. And you're gonna have to, you know, as my mama would say, you can like it, love it, or leave it alone, but it ain't gonna change.
I think this is why we all need to be nimble, right? And I think that's one thing that BLUU has just taken a cornerstone in the faith, and is being nimble. And I think this is also why people get very confused sometimes in this 5.3 promise, because they want to see long drawn out plans of, you know, in committees and under, you know, right?
Who's on your board?
Exactly. But that's just not the way we roll. And because we're not about posturing about work, we're about actually doing the work. And so in order to do that, we need to be nimble. And I think that really, so I think I jumped in, I'm sorry. Go ahead.